So thank you, friends. It's a pleasure to speak to you on the fifth Dr. R.M. Pal Memorial Lecture. And this year we have a very eminent speaker, Dr. Narendra Nayak. He is the president of the Federation of Indian Rationalist Association and is a very well-known figure in the field of rationalism and exposing the miracle and promoting scientific temperament. He has spoken in universities, in colleges, in public meetings, in village circles, in village panchayats, in social movements. So it's a multi-faceted personality, and he speaks so many languages. So many of our people who have joined here have known him in the grassroots, where he has shown his programs. So I want to introduce this lecture. Actually, Dr. R.M. Pal, who has been a very well-known humanist and activist, writer, intellectual. He was born on 17 July 1927, and in East Bengal, what we called Bangladesh now. And Dr. Pal has been a leading figure in the human rights movement in India. He was president of the People's Union for Civil Liberties in Delhi, and he's associated with a large number of eminent personalities of his time, who eminent jurists, academics, and intellectuals. Dr. Pal also was editor of UCL Bulletin for a very long period, and then he also edited the Radical Humanist. Large number of his articles have been published by mainstream Indian media like Times of India, Indian Express, and uh, other magazines. On 15th of October 2015, he passed away, and since 2016, we have been, organizing a lecture in his memory, mostly dedicated to the issues of caste, communalism, and growing intolerance, which were very dear to him. And we began with Professor Shamsul Islam, and then first lecture was organized by Professor Shamsul Islam, and then Professor Chaman Lal. We spoke about fascism and communalism in India. Then we had a panel of five eminent Dalit rights activists, Professor Sujata Surepalli, Manas Jina, Goldie M. George, and Mr. E.L. Nimro, who spoke on caste issues and caste discrimination. And last year, we had organized this event in Udaipur, Rajasthan, where Mr. Bhavar Meghvanshi, an eminent Ambedkarite from Rajasthan, he spoke about Jati Kyun Nahi Jati, why the caste doesn't disappear in India. And also Professor Mohan Chotria was a speaker there. So this year, we are in a very unprecedented crisis, or a crisis can be an opportunity also. We have seen how we are dealing with this pandemic called COVID-19. Dr. Narendra Nayak himself became a victim, and he is now with us. He fought against it, and in the initial phases of in March, April, and he has his own experience with COVID. So a very grand welcome to him. He has seen how we are our political leaders and power people promoting superstition and religiosity during this period of COVID. So the topic for today is nationalism in the time of COVID. So I hope it's a very important issue, and Dr. Nayak, nobody else better than him could speak on the issue. So I welcome you, Dr. Nayak, and the floor is with you now.
Thank you.
I'm requesting all friends to please mute their mics And once Dr. Nayak finishes his lecture, then we will have opportunities for question and answer. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Clear? Okay. So thank you very much, Sangeeta and Vivi, for inviting me to this lecture. Though I do not know the person in whose memory the lecture is organized, I know the daughter and I know how she is. So I can imagine how the father was. Anyway, today we find the need for a rational approach, rational thinking, and the communication of this to the public at large during these very challenging times when a small 30 kilobyte long bit of RNA has held the whole world to ransom. In fact, it has held reason to ransom in many places. I think in a large part of the world, the reason has been held to ransom by this virus.
Dr. Nayak, Dr. Nayak, I can't hear you properly. Can you adjust your mic a little bit?
Is it okay now?
It's better. Yes.
Or I'll try this. Is it okay now? Or I'll have to hold it in. Right. So, is it clear now? Now is it okay?
Yes, it's better.
That's the best thing. That's the best way.
That's the best one. Now, when the whole world is facing this crisis, we see that a lot of opportunists are trying to make hay when the disease goes on. Like making hay when the sun shines. Here we are making money when the disease goes on. And everybody loves a good pandemic, particularly those in power, the bureaucracy, the profiteers, and all those. And we see so many concepts being proposed which have absolutely no rational basis. But what is being done is emotional aspect, the fear, the phobia, and the unknown. Those are being put to use by these people to threaten everybody, scare everybody, and try to get the best out of it. That means try to make the maximum profit out of it. In fact, I got this in the very, very early stage of its infection in India. In fact, it was in the last week of March. When I got it, my physician refused to believe. Anyway, he was not in a position to come and examine because nobody would examine that patient, but the advice would be given over the
I'm
phone.
still, Dr. Nayak, I'm still having problems hearing you clearly. I don't know about the others.
What about you, Vidya? Vivi?
Maybe
It's
you're
it's
on mute.
it's okay actually. I think
I think the problem is with Sangeeta.
I think the voice is okay now.
Yeah.
It's
Is it okay now, Sangeeta?
it is fading in and out. So I'm missing out some words, basically.
I think Vivi is not missing any words.
No, it's okay for me.
Is it okay now? It has to go into my mouth.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
Now it's okay. Right. So when I thought I caught it, and I do not know the source also, because the first thing my physician said, if you think you have caught it, tell me the source. I was not in a position to tell the source because there were only some 10 or 20 cases in Karnataka at the time. And I had traveled by train 2 weeks back. I thought maybe it is from there. But anyway, the symptoms were the usual ones, the fever, the sweating, but a little bit of body ache, loss of appetite, loss of taste, but no anosmia. And the fever went on, and I could not get myself tested also. Because in those days, the tests available were so few that you had to be eminently qualified to be tested. That is, you should have a temperature of more than 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which I did not have. Or you should have been the primary contact of a positive patient. I did not know where I got it. So we were talking about the positive patient when there are only a few dozens in Karnataka. Or you had to be coming from abroad, which I was not. So I was not even eligible to be tested. It went on. Then I had a stop after a week. I thought, well, I'm out of it now. 2 days there was no fever. On the third day, the fever started again. And when I asked my physician, he said, no, you won't get it for the second time. It's impossible. But it was not a reinfection. It was the first infection itself going on. And it went on and on for one more week. And finally, when it was over, I was tired, exhausted, minus 4 kilos in weight, and almost to that bent back. I'm not walking around, couldn't even walk around properly. But during the course of the disease, somehow I was managing, had a bit of breathlessness, but I got through. But despite of my claiming that it is that, there was no evidence that it was that. Because you won't get a positive swab. When I was over with it, the conditions had been relaxed and one could get a throat swab tested at will when needed. But I won't be positive because I'd already got over that. And there was no way by which you could find out an old infection by checking for antibodies. And actually, the test came only in the last week of July. And then the better test came in the first week of October. And now, recently, just a week back, I've been proved that I was infected and I got out of it. Without, as I have been kicking people around, I said without taking Chyawanprash, without taking immunoboosters, without taking even a single paracetamol, without taking HCQ, without taking a grandma's kadas or anything like that, I got through. Only poison I consumed was a chemical called as dihydrogen monoxide. And you know, those who know chemistry, you know very well that dihydrogen monoxide. People have been telling you that जो non-veg खाते हैं, those eat meat, fish, egg, and all that, they will not survive COVID. But I was eating them every single day for the duration. Though the taste wasn't all that, I was eating that because it's a part of my diet. So at the age of 70, I managed to get out of it without any problems, and I should say major problems. Today, I'm as fit as I was before. I started my gym, I started my walk, I started moving around. And in the last 2 weeks, with the confidence that I have antibodies. Before that, though I knew that I had it, but there was no evidence. And we have to go by evidence. And what are the things that I have been doing, even when I was down with COVID, to kick these people who have been promoting superstitions, who have been lining their pockets, who have been exploiting people in the name of so many things. Not one, but so many. Broad spectrum antiviral, immunity booster, similibus curantor, the sugar pill vendors, the dispensers of grandma's kadas. In fact, in South, it is called by some other in Madras. They say it's a part of Siddha something. but add pepper, ginger, uh, turmeric, boil that, and drink it hot. Because if you drink it cold, no. And the amount of misinformation going on WhatsApp has been tremendous. As a biochemist, I was shocked to see a pH value of 21.5. Avocados have a pH value of 21.5. And no logic can the pH of any substance, pH means the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration, can go less than 0 or more than 14. And 0 to 7 is acidic, and 7 to 14 is what we call as alkaline. And here they said avocados have a pH of 21.5, which is virtually impossible. And that was going around on WhatsApp. That lemon has got a pH of 12 point something. Mangoes. And they're telling that the virus can survive only in a pH of 6 to 8. But you cannot survive in a pH of 6 to 8. Your body pH is between 7.4 plus or minus 0.04. That is the pH of the blood plasma. And here they are saying the virus can survive it. These are the sort of misinformation going around. Arsenicum album, 30C potency, 2 per day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. And one of the industrialists who is supposed to be very progressive, Bajaj, to run that Bajaj Auto, he fed his workers with that concoction, and I think some 300 or 400 of them came down with COVID, and I think a few died also. Just imagine this. Just imagine somebody calling himself progressive and then dispensing these sugar. The Ministry of Ayush came with directives, give this and this. And of all the places, an Atomic Power Corporation unit issues a circular to its employees that your doses of arsenicum album are available in some particular places in the plant premises. But this is nuclear science for you. Eating a sugar pill, 30C potency, which does not even contain a single molecule of whatever active ingredient that it is supposed to contain. Then we have Chyawanprash, supposed to be excellent for development of immunity. Let me tell you about my personal experience with Chyawanprash. When I was a PG student, and when we were doing experiments in nutrition, coincidentally at that time, vitamin C had hit the headlines. One double Nobel laureate, his name is Linus Pauling. He got 2 Nobel Prizes, one for chemistry, nature of the chemical bond, and the other one was for peace. He suddenly hit the headlines by saying that ascorbic acid in huge doses, in mega doses, can cure anything from the common cold to cancer. So, people started telling this. You people were skeptical about Ayurveda. Do you know which is the richest source of vitamin C? In Indian amla, gooseberry. And that is a constituent of Chyawanprash. And Chyawanprash is a rich source of vitamin C. That's why it's good for every damn. So I thought, anyway, I'm estimating vitamin C. Let me do it. I did it. I got 0. Absolute 0. No Chyawanprash. I tried with amla, we got good values, nearly 800 milligrams per 100 grams. But when we did with Chyawanprash, it was 0. So we tried another batch. That too came 0. Then I asked my professor, sir, we are trying this, but we are getting 0. Why is it? He said, man, find out how Chyawanprash is made. Then I found out the process. He said, by the process they make it, even 1 microgram of vitamin C will not, because they expose it to atmospheric oxygen, heat, metal, and all. So this is the way Chyawanprash is being said as a panacea. Immunity booster. Can you boost immunity? Yes, you can. How? By making the immune system synthesize antibodies to the antigens which are present in the infecting organism, whether it's a virus or a bacteria. That's how the only way you can do it, mind you. No other way. And how do you do that? You do that by injecting a vaccine. Where is a vaccine? Nowhere. But we have people telling that your immunity can be boosted by this, that. Of course, your immunity may be low when you have deficiencies of certain things, but it cannot be boosted above the normal when you have no deficiencies by any damn. And that is what WHO has said. That's what every single authority in the field has said. Of course, we are in a different field. We say give vitamin C, give this, give that, and that. And finally, double-blind trials have proved that none of the concoctions, homeopathic, Ayurvedic, or even so-called evidence-based medicine, where some of the drugs were put for off-label use, mind you. SCQ was not meant as a treatment for COVID-19. So, but it is being used for other things. So when it is used for something for which there is no evidence or very sketchy evidence, it's called off-label use. All the drugs that were used were off-label use only. None of them have it to be effective against the infection by this virus. However, some drugs were found to be useful, like dexamethasone. What was that doing? It was preventing the hyperimmune reaction. It was not curing the infection, but it was preventing the excessive body reaction to the infection. So it is not a cure. But people are saying that it can cure, it can cure. And people started taking benefit of it. In Karnataka, one man said he has got a broad spectrum antiviral coming from Ayurveda. Then he conducted trials, mind you, in inverted commas, giving it to 10 patients who are in the normal age group, that is 20 to 60, and then said all 10 were killed. Imagine this. And then he started telling that it has been proved to be effective. Same thing with our bearded contortionist. He started something called as coronary, gave it to normal people and said that it works. Finally, he was forced to withdraw it. In fact, in order to stop such things, the government had brought an amendment to the Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act, saying that you cannot advertise that something will cure COVID-19. Anything advertising COVID-19 cure was not permitted. I have, in fact, I filed now complaints against that man with the drugs controller, and I'm waiting for action to be taken. Because the drugs and magic remedies objectionable advertisement act, of course, it doesn't have huge teeth or anything, but something is better than nothing. It has a list of diseases for which you cannot say that something will cure that. And here we have people saying that hair concoction can cure COVID-19. Many a time I am told, well, what is your problem? Let somebody take something. If it doesn't work, fine. If it works, okay. Even if it doesn't work, what is it? What are you going to lose? What are those people going to lose? You are giving a false hope to people that they have taken something which makes them immune from the infection. And that is very, very dangerous. You are putting some, I am COVID antibody positive. I have got enough IgG in my blood to protect me against infection. But yet, I follow all the protocols that one should follow. I wear a mask. I practice hand sanitization. I practice personal distancing. Everything. What anyone else should do. But of course, I'm not practicing some other thing, maybe we'll come to that later. But if you lull a person into confidence, saying that nothing is going to happen to you because you are taking this concoction, that person is automatically going to let his or her guard down. Then what is there? आखिर मैंने तो गोली ली है क्या होगा इससे? And I have a solid example of this. In fact, to mock these people who claim these things, I had made a concoction called as swinel 10 years back. And this swinel tablets were supposed to be a cure for swine flu 10 years back. Actually, it was just peanut candy. I'd taken these nice things which are looking like pills, some white and pink, and I released it to the press, saying that I give you guarantee, 99% guarantee that you will not get swine flu if you take this 3 times. And some of them thought that we have actually discovered something until I told them, well, it is easy to say that something will cure a disease for which the case fatality ratio is only 1%. So that is how people are getting away with offering cures for things like this. Because case fatality rate is maybe 1.5 to 2% in the Indian population. This time also we wanted to do it, but we can't do it because we will be prosecuted under the Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisement Act, even if we are saying we are doing it for survival. Coming back to the point, I have got a solid example of how this happened. It's excessive confidence. In a place called as Guruvankere near Mangalore, where VB has come, there's a big exploitatory temple there, a Hindu temple owned by a Jain. And in that area, we have got an organization which works among the people. That invited me to address the people, and at that time, an epidemic of what is called a chikungunya was going on. And again, whenever something viral goes around, the sugar pill dispensers, the concoctionists of herbs and roots and jaggery and all that will come around and offer cures. At that time, a homeopathic preventive was being offered. And there was such a long queue for it that people used to stand in the queue from morning to evening to get their dose of the sugar pills. And those who did not get would return the next day. And many of them took it home and started fixing it. And I've gone to the place, they told me, sir, what we have seen is those who have taken the pills have got chikungunya, many of them. But some of us who never got those pills, never got it. How come? What is the difference? I was shocked. I thought, well, no, homeopathy works, similar current all. And to a virus which goes through a vector, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, has been treated with sugar and it enters the body and infects. This is something great. I was just wondering. Then I asked the people, what did you do? Then I got the point. Those who had not got the pills were exercising great precautions, wearing, because this is transmitted by Aedes aegypti, which is a daytime traveler, and it is a exophyte. It wanders around outside. So these people were observing all the precautions, but those who had got the sugar pills were confident that nothing would happen to them because they are already immune to it because of the sugar pills. They are going around happily, got bitten, and some of them got infected. So I got a solid, sterling example of how these so-called preventives can have a negative action by putting extra confidence into people, foolish confidence that nothing will happen to them. In Karnataka, what was the response? At one particular, every response was not based on evidence. I mean, initial stages. Karnataka government said, look at us. A country like New Zealand has got some 500 cases. Bangalore, which is twice the size of New Zealand, has got only half the number of cases. See how effectively we are controlled. I think we will remember that's what I had written there for the minister's post. I said, boy, your ain't seen nothing yet. Just wait when it really hits. And now you see that Bangalore is topping the pace. And at one time in Karnataka, it was overreaction. Every fellow entering the state was caught at the border and tests were done. And at one time, there were thousands of people in quarantine. 96% of them, mind you, 96% were asymptomatic positives. They were all being fed at the government expense. And then thousands of beds in stadium. Again, that's a scam. What do you do with those bloody beds? You provide sleeping accommodation to people. There's nothing there except put them on the beds and give them paracetamol and give them all sorts of wrong diet, high in refined carbohydrates and all that. And you know very well that the high refined carbohydrate people, they have been most susceptible to the effects of this COVID. And that's what has happened to many people, particularly the diabetics. The diabetes has become very severe during this situation. And then they started the tests. Initially, there was fewer number, and then they started the RAT test, that is the rapid antigen test. And these rapid antigen tests, the positive ones, yes, are positive, but the negative ones cannot be taken as negative. So if you have symptoms, you have to do it. And then, in spite of all that, they started getting very high positivity rates. And this is a red signal for ICM. So immediately the governments, the Kerala government as well as Karnataka government, they started testing, going from house to house and testing, because they wanted to bring down the positivity. Even there they did not succeed much. Right now we see in the southern state the positivity rate is around 13 to 14%. It's because the infection is so rapid. And actually, if you take the number of infected people is 10 to maybe 50 times the actual number of positive cases. I myself know at least 100 people who never got tested, but I never got tested. Because, and when I got tested, I came in the list of negative. Because I knew very well that it would be negative because it was just done last month, October. And I told them it will be negative, but they wanted to bring down the positivity rate. That's why they were going house to house and doing it on normal people. And then they started seeing that we will have something called as reverse quarantine. Every aspect of it shows how unscientific we are. They said instead of quarantining those who are infected, actually the suggestion was made by a friend of mine, a very good physician, right in the beginning of the day. He said for 2 months, quarantine those above 60 and those who have comorbidity. Of course, it was a very big scheme, but that was a suggestion. And then let the others roam around free. They'll get infected, develop antibodies, and that will be the end of it. But of course, it's very impractical in a country like India, where we have both the grandparents, the children, and the grandchildren all staying in 200 square feet room under one roof. It's virtually impossible. So again, that was the reaction. Now, what is happening? What have we come to know? After all the lockdowns, all the concoctions, all the ringing of bells, hollies, lighting of lamps, showering petals, we have come to a stage now where my mother tongue will say, when, what will happen will happen. And in Kannada, there is a saying, your hand is on your head. That means sab Ram bharosa. Now you see the present situation in this country is just Ram bharosa. Because what I see in Mangalore, it is supposed to be VB has come here, it looks like you have come to some foreign place in the country. Because so disciplined people, so clean, all of And here is people wandering around without masks, people sitting in crowded, laughing, shouting, and all that. So I do not know what is the situation. Probably it is worse. The bars have opened, the restaurants have opened, the cinema halls have opened, gym has opened, and I've started going to my gym. I told them, well, look here, I've got a certificate. Swimming pools are open, the religious ceremonies are going on, and now what is going to happen after the Puja and Diwali holidays? Again, Ram Bharosa. We know what is going to happen, and people crowding, not bothering about personal distancing, not bothered about masking, not bothered about half hygiene, anything like that. Lockdown in a country like this with a 4-hour notice, where a country like Singapore, where from one end to the other you can drive in 1 hour gives, I think, 2 or 3 days notice. Singapore cannot be called even a country, it's half the size of New Delhi. And here we close down, lockdown with 4 hours notice, and then extended it for 2 months because somebody advised the top man saying that it will come to zero. We have the astrologers, and we have different astrologers making different predictions. 1/10 of them will say it will end in September. Again, 1/10 will say in October. 1/10 will say December. 1/10 will say January, February. So whatever happens, astrology is always right. Because those are wrong will shut up. Those are right will start shouting from the tops and say how scientific it is. It is because Rahu moved into this house, or Ketu moved into that house, or the sun moved into that house. People are taking advantage of every damn thing and exploiting people's gullibility. But one welcome thing I've seen in this is God has been thrown into the dust because all the so-called houses of God have been there is secularism there. Hindu, the Muslim, the Christian, and even the no-God places of worship like the Jains and the Buddhists. They have had to close down. That is great. But of course, once things improve, God will come back into the picture and they'll say, by the grace of God. So I tell people, if the grace of God was there, you could have always seen to it that this virus itself does not come in. But that, of course, the grace of God is such that it is very mysterious. It acts only in certain ways. For example, there was an accident, they said 4 people died, but I survived by the grace of God. I said, what happened to the other 4? There was no grace of God. But how do you put reasoning into the minds of the people when the people at the top are talking about Gomutra, they are talking about kadas, they are talking about turmeric, they are talking about ginger, they are talking about every damn thing except something which can really kill the disease because nothing like that. ICMR said, even ICMR is talking without it. ICMR said that HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, can be used as a preventive. So when I got the fever, I gave it to my but she got it. And when she got it, I was still believed ICMR. I said, I may get a third infection. So but nothing happened. Of course, I did not get it because I was already, but she got it because HCQ doesn't work. Nothing works. Told it very clearly by the WHO multi situation location trials that nothing works. Anyway, this is the state of today. Is a vaccine going to come? Just don't. Because so far the experience of vaccines with RNA viruses has been extremely disappointing. Again, repeat, extremely disappointing. Because for flu, somehow they managed the vaccine, but it has to be taken every season. For a reverse transcriptase having infection in human immunodeficiency virus, HIV virus, it's an RNA virus. Still, no vaccine has been found. For common cold, no vaccine. So we just do not know. We do not know what is going to happen. But the only way we can do is observe the safety precautions like distancing, mask, and hygiene, cough hygiene, and hand sanitization. These are the only things that look like they work and nothing else. So these are my experiences that you don't need anything. I did not even take a paracetamol, nothing else. Of course, post-infection, when my wife got it, I was not having fever, I got scared. And but of course, it didn't work because it was not necessary at all. But now ICMR now doesn't talk about hydroxy. They just stop everything. But it has come out with a directive for recuperation. And it is one of the top signatories in that, telling you take Chyawanprash, blah, 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 blah. His name is Vaidya Krishna. And he is a very famous Ayurvedic physician, vice chancellor of a deemed to be university, and one of the top Ayurveda facilities for Vaidyas in the country. And do you know, 2 weeks back, his photo came in the front page of the Hindu. What? RIP. The man whose name is on the top of the list of making recovery, you just go through it. Check the recommendations of Ayush for prevention, cure, and recuperation from COVID. You have this list of things, and you have a list of signatories. The top man in the list of signatories himself succumbed to COVID-19. So I will not say anything more. What about the Minister for Ayush, Shripad Naik? He is from Goa. When Shripad Naik was tested COVID positive, Shripad Naik did not take his pandits, did not take his hakims or the contortionists to teach him. He went to a military hospital, got admitted there, and when things became difficult, a group was summoned from Delhi, a group of top pandits, sugar pill experts. No boss, sorry. No top pandits, no sugar pill experts. It was a team from All India Institute of Medical Sciences that was brought to Goa. So that shows the hypocrisy of the ruling combination. How they are, what they advise the common man and what they do. When number 2 in the ministry got it, he did not take Chyawanprash. He went and got admitted to a 7-star hospital. And he did not have confidence in the people there. So whom did he bring? People from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, a government institution built during the Nehru era. Just imagine this, the hypocrisy of these people. I do not know whether it's right in people or whether they will still vote back this combination to power. But the hypocrisy is so clear, it is so evident, but yet I do not know whether we will see that. Actually, some people have expressed that it is like mother administering a harsh, bitter medicine to the child. So here we have the top man as a father figure administering bitter medicine in terms of currency demonetization or the lockdown. Imagine India was the only country with a 2-month lockdown, 2 months. And how many people died? What about the reverse migration? What about taking the virus to the village? There nobody knows what is happening, and we do not know what is the mortality rate. I'm expecting a 0.1% increase in the mortality rate this year, which in absolute terms means 13 lakhs. 0.1% is 13 lakhs are going to die. Because now I think it is time for a question. We said I speak for 45 minutes, and I think I already exceeded. Don't
Thank you,
expect
Dr.
me to
Thank you very
successful.
much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nayak. I hope many people have some questions. Obviously, your voice was not coming very clear. I think there was some problem in the mic, but it was good. And you have given your own experiences and shown the hypocrisy of the political leadership, where, you said that, the God people will come again. They have already come. They have already started, this is the festive season, and that is why they have opened up now. So every damn God Bhakt is there, and they are seeking now, blessings, and everybody is claiming that it will be over. So I request friends, if you have questions from Dr. Nayak, please you can, and it will be good. Otherwise, I will have 2-3 questions in Hindi for our other friends.
I will answer this about the scientific aspect. Okay, because I'm not a physician or a clinician at all. I'm a biochemist.
Yeah.
These are questions about scientific aspects. You can ask about the test, you can ask about the antibodies, you can ask about things like that. But of course, even a clinician cannot do anything about this because there is absolutely no treatment. Any symptom.
I think one of the question that came in my mind is three things that I want to ask you, and maybe one is how dangerous is this? Like many people are giving example that people are dying of tuberculosis, more people die of tuberculosis and other kind of malaria and other disease in the world. How dangerous is COVID-19? That is one thing. And second is, you talked about immunity. And
Let me go one by one. Let me go one by one. Let me go one by one. First, let me start with the first one.
okay.
See, the average mortality rate for India is 0.74% from 2014 onwards. Before that, it was slightly higher. After 2014, it is hovering around that. So, and these people are not dying from COVID-19. They were dying from 7.4 people out of 1,000 would die every year. They were dying from accident, they were dying from diseases, they were dying from cancer, and so on. Now, this is in addition to that. Of course, some of them who would have died from that would have died earlier because of COVID-19 infection. In fact, I lost one of my best students. I lost one of my best students, Yogesh Humanistic, if you remember. Of course, we lost him to shoot. And this lady, she changed at the age of 42 and she succumbed to COVID at the age of 54. And she was a cancer survivor. So you feel bad when something like this happens. In Mangalore, an MD student who had just joined for MD medicine, imagine. He contracted this, became positive, and he died within 2 days. Not from the disease, but because of hydroxychloroquine. Even among the physicians, they are irrational. They started him on SCQ straight because he's a young man. Though SCQ has been now proved to be useless, they were still using it without evidence. And he just died. So we see people going like that. And we see people with comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, existing respiratory diseases like asthma, like sleep apnea, they all suffer more. But those without these, the infected fatality ratio may be even less than the case fatality ratio. Because most of the infected, they do not do anything. They just don't even get tested. But it is not something to be brushed aside. Because no one has immunity. See, for tuberculosis, people are immune. For everything else, there is immunity. Even if you get flu from a new mutation this season, you still have some immunity to some of its effects because you have been infected last season. Flu infects every single individual almost, unless he or she is on an island and alone on an island without any contact with the outside world. Because the seasonal flu infects almost everybody, and for most of the people it passes on. Only to the vulnerable people they get it. But there are quacks talking nonsense like one PhD in diabetes from University of Timbuktu, some Chowdhury his name is, was some engineering student somewhere, and he said his name is there in the Guinness Book of World Records, and he is talking nonsense. So don't go by that. Observe the precautions. He is saying don't even wear a mask. What is that? Yeah, next question.
Any other question friends would like to ask? I'm still.
That's three questions. We finished with one.
My next question is about the immunity. Now, this immunity thing, in the last 6 months, I've also spoken to various people outside India about this issue, and in Africa, in even Latin America. And there are common thread between Indians and them about the immunity thing. Everywhere I ask the question, how are you coping with this coronavirus? And they tell us that there are ginger, there is lemon ginger को रोज रोज पियो, और अभी तो हर जगह पे जो है बहुत सारी चीजें हो चुकी हैं इंडिया में, आप जानते हैं कि
Amul has come out with haldi ka दूध.
हाँ हल्दी भी है, टर्मरिक. So how effective are these? Do you think they are useless, or do you think they work like in strengthening our immune system?
Back to the point. Yeah. Do you think that the minister for Ayush has not taken all this? Do you think the top Ayurveda man in the country has not taken all this? Or they do not take it because they know it is bogus? If you like the taste of it, drink it. But don't think that it does anything other than that. Okay. And somebody told me that this destroys the virus, that destroys the virus, that if you put, I said in those, I said concentrated sulfuric acid will definitely destroy the virus. But what else it will destroy along with that, you just check. Because you are saying inhale steam. If you inhale steam at a high temperature, your respiratory tract will get scalded. In fact, many of the doctors are saying that we are treating patients with all such accidents. We inhale this, we inhale that, and we do this and that. So, best thing for you is to avoid this thing. See that you do not have deficiency. That's all.
Okay.
Just
And
because deficiency can lower your immunity, it just doesn't mean that an overdose will increase your immunity.
Yeah.
I in fact laws complaints with the Advertising Standard Council of India against 2 or 3 of such people. Now I have to see the result. Inquiries are going about the claims for immunoboosting.
Now people are all waiting for a miracle. They're saying that the vaccine will come, and do you think that the whole hype, or what we say, the fear psychosis that was created among the people after February is because of the total control of the commercialization of the medical system, because there are companies vying, and every company in Europe and America, they are now dying, to make it, become the first company to have developed the vaccine. So do you think there is this thing is there somewhere these companies are, creating this whole phobia or a scarcity thing?
See, come back to this. Come back to the Spanish flu epidemic. How many people died? Lots of them died because of secondary bacterial infection and a lack of understanding of the nature of it. Now, all these things are there. And those who had immunity survived. So this time also the same thing is going to happen, but results are going to be much better. Because secondary bacterial infection due to pneumonia and all are going to be very much under control here. But of course, the problem of that hyperimmune reaction was there in the Spanish flu also. That is particularly there here. Now, if you ask about those people who are saying immunity boosting, tell them that the problems in COVID-19 are mainly with immunity because the hyperimmune reaction, the cytokine storm, that is what is causing the complications, right? So tell them that. So if you boost immunity, probably that could happen. Of course, it will not happen, but I'm saying for those who make claims of boosting immunity, if you tell them this argument, they have no argument. What I see is that people love this. Those who are in the profiteering stage, those who can make masks, those who are making sanitizers, those who are selling Gomutra, the contortionists, those who are teaching breathing, everything, saying that by breathing it will happen, by doing some contortion this will happen. What happened? Nothing. Only thing that will help you is your own body immunity. There is the B cell immunity, there is T cell. B cell immunity is for the synthesis of immunoglobulins, which can protect you. And T cell immunity is cellular immunity that takes some time to kick in. Even though the immunoglobulins might go down, the T cell immunity still remains for probably for lifelong. And the mutation that may cause some changes in infectivity or something. But generally, when a virus infects you, what you get as a reaction are what we call as polyclonal antibodies. Antibodies to a number of components of the virus. So these antibodies, some of them will be effective against something or the other of the mutated virus also. Because generally what a virus is not alive. Many people don't realize that. They say viruses are alive on the surface of this. Viruses are not alive. Viruses are just chemicals. A bag of nucleic acid enclosed in a protein capsule. It becomes alive only when it enters your body. It may remain viable, but is not alive.
Do you agree with the ICMR's now hope that the peak is over and it will go by February, or do you think that we still have?
I wish it were. I wish it were so.
But you don't have. You still feel that the peak is not
So,
over.
only thing that is predictable about this COVID to COVID-19 is that is the unpredictable. That's the only thing that can be predicted. Because second waves are starting in Europe where the lockdowns were implemented, then they were opened. Sweden tried herd immunity, partly it succeeded, but they eliminated a lot of old people home vacancies were caused in Sweden. Same thing happened in England. But now I think UK has taken a different approach. But I think it's a judicious mixture that we see. And India is a country with a very low average age. So what will be eliminated are we the old people. And a lot of problems will be solved. Inheritance issues, SARS Bahu conflicts will all be resolved in favor of the younger people. That's what I was sarcastically saying. This is all that will happen.
Friends,
And
any
it is
question that
highest
you would
peak,
like to
I think,
ask?
around about.
If you have anything in mind that you want to ask to Dr. Nayak, Sangeeta, would you like to speak? Yeah.
On behalf of my family, first and foremost, my mother is sitting with me.
Yeah.
My sister is across the world in the United States, one of the most hit by the COVID virus, incidentally, one of the worst hit countries in the world. I would like to thank first VV Rawat for hosting this talk and to Dr. Nayak for delivering a lecture on rationalism in times of COVID. Um, I I suggested that Dr. Nayak deliver this lecture because rationalism, I feel, is always the first casualty in any disaster. And that is unfortunate because we don't trust to science, we don't trust to organized medical research. We just we fall into the trap of trusting to charlatans and quacks. And the other reason I wanted Dr. Nayak to speak was because we do need to to promulgate rationalism in our country very passionately, to embrace it very passionately, to embrace the cause of science very passionately. And from that point of view, I think the work that Dr. Nayak is doing is so very important. My father was an ardent rationalist, and believer in the scientific methodology. In fact, he always advocated giving rational arguments in favor of any move. So anything that one did must be supported by reason. And as humanists, I think that is one of our main credos, that we endorse reason above and beyond anything else. So thank you, Dr. Nayak, for joining us this evening. It was very enlightening talk. Unfortunately, the audio was not as clear as it could have been, but I'm sure if we play the recording back and put a transcript, we will get the entire lecture very clearly. And thank you to everyone for attending this lecture and preserving the memory of Dr. Pal, one of the last radical humanists who passed 5 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends, for coming and joining us. And I'm happy that some of our friends from Bangladesh and Nepal also joined here and listen to this talk. So we hope we will continue with our talks in the coming days. I want to thank Dr. Nayak for this important talk. And I hope that he will continue to speak, and he speak from very conviction, and we have seen him on various places, not merely in academic institution, but all in the street also. He has done a lot of work on RTI. So thank you for taking your time, and it was definitely a very enlightening talk. We'll put it very soon on the social media. Unfortunately, I was unable to link the Facebook. I was trying, but I will just, in the evening, we'll put the entire video recording on social media for the dissemination of this talk. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and we will see you again. Thank you, Dr. Nayak, and thank you everyone who joined us here in today's talk.